Good afternoon, everybody. Can we just check at the back there, Peter? You guys, can you hear? Jeffrey, if you guys can hear us. Okay, so um, welcome to everybody from the family. You might have to be a little bit patient. I might get unstuck a few times, but bear with me. Welcome from John and Di, Georgina, Harrison, Aiden, and Natalie. Of course, Andy in Namibia, and Kathy. And I'd also like to welcome all those that have joined us on Zoom. I think it's wonderful that we have the opportunity and the technology available today, because so many people would have loved to be here, but unfortunately, because they far away, they are still with us, and other people, because of the whole situation that we're in, they're also able to be with us. So welcome to everybody on that's logged in on Zoom. Just a couple of formalities. Obviously, guys, as I said in my mails to everybody and those who did or didn't get the messages, I know it's difficult. I know at times like this, the natural connotation is to hug, to be together, to show affection and things like that. But I reckon if we can just, at least to some extent, try and stay a little bit within the COVID regulations, that'll be cool. For those who don't know, if you need the bathroom, the toilet where you came in, if you just go back over there, that's where you'll find the toilet. We have arranged for foods and drinks and things afterwards. So when we're done, there will be food for everybody and drinks, and you're welcome to stay as long as you like. And I'm sure we're not going to run out of wine. And if we run out of beer, I'm sure I can send Jeffrey to go get some more. But I'd also like to remind everybody that there is a curfew. So what we would like to do is by 8 o'clock, just wrap everything up in order to give everybody time to obviously get home within the regulations. So just to let everybody know that obviously John and Di is not here, Andy's not here. There's a lot of the other siblings, especially on Georgina's side, that's not here, but just so that everybody is aware, we did have a gathering of just the close family on the 31st. And so I guess in their absence and not being here, but having been there, I'd like to welcome them here as well. Fortunately, because of the whole Zoom situation, we don't really have, is the sound coming better now?
Yes.
You guys hear better? Okay. There are no apologies, because those, as you know, that we've kept this to a close invitation only thing, and we didn't receive any apologies, because all those that couldn't make it here today have then opted to be on Zoom. I have to have a few thank yous. First and foremost, to the Cape Wilderness Search and Rescue, Table Mountain National Parks, the emergency services, the helicopter on the day, everybody that helped, that assisted me on the day, and that assisted every one of us. I'd like to thank them in their absence. Something that we won't do that often is to thank the South African Police Services. I can just tell all of you that the help and the assistance that we have received from them has actually been amazing. If you compare when you go into the charge station and the havoc that you find there and the total incompetence that you find there compared to the assistance that we have received throughout the entire process has been absolutely amazing. So I would like to thank, and we will still be sending out an official thank you to the South African Police Services for not only being very attentive in the whole thing, but also in their understanding and in their compassion with which they've actually handled it. And it was a bit of an eye-opener that we do have that side from the South African Police Services. So thank you to them. And then he's obviously also opted, Adam, he spoke at length and has torn about coming here today or about going on Zoom, and obviously he's opted for Zoom. I'd like to say, Adam, thank you very much. He has been a really rock in the whole thing. He has assisted tremendously. He has helped with handling all the technicalities, the Civil Aviation Authority investigation. He's done the whole report for us. Adam has just really been fantastic. So thank you to him. And then I'm sure there's a million other people who have sent in notes, sent in their condolences. Thank you to all of you, to those who has done it, who's not here, who's not on Zoom. I don't know you by name or cannot remember by name, but thank you to all of those people. We knew we were going to have wind. So the first message that I'd like to then read, we've received a few messages. By the way, guys, there's going to be no sermon or religious sermon or anything like that. This is purely an informal gathering. This is purely a gathering to celebrate Rick and his life. And apart from me standing here, obviously, I'm going to ask, there are some people who has been spoken to or who has already nominated, who has been asked to speak, who will speak. But I'm also obviously going to ask any one of you to please stand up and come and share some of your memories that you've had with Rick. I've just had two very funny stories that I've heard now this afternoon, and I'd like to call on those guys to actually come and share those really good, wonderful stories with us. The first message that we've received here is from John and Di, and she says, Kathy, if it's not too difficult for you, please say these words for us. Okay. From John and Di, we will cherish our memories of Rick forever. He will always be an important and much loved part of our family. We are full of all the love we all share. I think to the point. Wonderful message. Carol Paquet, for Rick, what you see is what you get. And what we all got from Rick was sincerity, accountability, loyalty, honesty, and unbreakable family values. This was crystal clear from the moment you met him. These were his enduring qualities. I have known Rick all my life. After all, he is my cousin. We didn't spend much time together when we were younger. However, I got to know him better when we were young adults living in Johannesburg. He stepped up and into my life in a big way while I was going through a divorce. When the weekends seemed intolerable, endless and lonely, and Mondays, with the distraction of work, couldn't come fast enough. We were both avid windsurfers at the time, and he would pick me up and we would drive to the Vaal Dam for an action-packed, sun-filled day. He introduced me to his friends, welcomed me into his circle, and created a safe place and a happy diversion during a very difficult time. Endless, selfless, and kind. He was the guy who dropped everything to help a friend or a family member. I am sure we can all think back to a time where Rick stepped in to help, and as Rick always does, gave his all to the cause at hand. He enveloped his family and friends with tremendous love. I will miss Rick terribly, as we all will. Carol Paquet. Carol lives in California. Rick's cousin, Kevin. Rick, why now? Shit, man. We were really looking forward to spending more time with you when we eventually make our move down south. You were a special, solid guy with a quiet, adventurous spirit. Going to miss you big time. Some things we will never know the answer to, and this is one of them. Fly high, Rick. Going to miss you big time. Our love and thoughts also to Georgina, Aiden, Harrison, Natalie, John and I, Kathy and Andy, and all family members. Much strength and love to you all. Kevin, Sue, Tegan, and Tammy. The last message is a bit of a longer one. It may be filled with a little bit more lightness to it. This is from Raymond Crussier. He says,
Remember him.
Hi, Georgina. It's Raymond here. One of the old gang that used to take over the Lacey residence with Alistair, Greg, and a few others in the heydays. I wish to pay Georgina and Rick's sisters, Andrea and Kathy, and Mr. and Mrs. Lacey, and their extended family, my heartfelt respects and condolences. Huh? What did I say? Okay, Andrea, I'm sorry. Rick was the catalyst, the reason I still visit Knysna as often as possible, and although a bugger when he wanted to be, was, in my opinion, the whatever, of what gentleman means. He was a man's man, and although we were introduced through Alistair and only really saw one another on our annual holidays now and then, or like most old mates nowadays at funerals, which is when I last had the opportunity to see Rick at Al's dad's funeral. You will remain a fond memory because through yours and Greg's persistence, I learned to ski in the Knysna Lagoon, enjoyed your hospitality and the drinking a beer upside down against the wall at your parents' house. The Rooimuur weekend in the forest at the log cabin. Won't elaborate too much about that weekend. Safe to say it was a proper all-fall down event. Mr. and Mrs. Lacey, Andrea, big sis, Andy, rather, and Kathy, and poor old Georgina. I share your loss because in Rick you lost a wonderful son, an Iron Man of a brother, and Georgina, we all know, I doubt anyone else will disagree, a rock of a husband. To Rick and Georgina, children, family, none of whom I have ever had the privilege of meeting, but I would like to say to you, I was proud of your dad. Like I said, a gentleman with a good dollop of bugger in him. I am dearly sorry for your loss, and I believe the Rick I knew would want you guys to celebrate his life, not mourn his death, and ignore the very emotional time of the year it took place. Celebrate that he had passed away soaring high. Strive as a family to continue soaring, making him prouder of all of you than I ever believe he would have been. Come on, guys. Let's wipe away the tears and pay tribute to the man that I had the privilege of drinking brandy and river water with the man who probably saved my life when he threw me a ski rope on New Year's Eve. Oh, sorry, it doesn't read well. When he threw me a ski rope on New Year's one year as I drifted in a strong current away from the rowing boat which swiped off Bollards Bay. Sorry. Of course, we were all in a showroom condition, but it was Rick's sharp eye that realized I wasn't quite the Mark Spitz I thought I was that saved the day, and we continued on over the party at Featherbed Bay, which was kind of a given and will always remind of a good friend. And yes, Alistair, Andre, Greg, and Billy, and anyone else I have left out, let's reflect on where we find ourselves wrapped up in our own little bubbles of self-importance and at least commit to a proper send-off by way of a get-together and a few beers and rebuild the great friendship we had. Because it saddens me as one of those friends to use funerals and Zoom to say hello and goodbye to great mates and acquaintances. Mr. and Mrs. Lacey, I traveled whilst on holiday to find your house to pay my condolences and respects in person, and drove up and down Titsville and Hart Avenues trying to remember your house, but to no avail. I apologize that I was unable to find you. In closing, I would like to reiterate to both of you and to Andy and Kathy, and especially Georgina, may all of you regain your strength quickly and believe that the son, brother, and husband you have lost deserves at least that you all believe he would want nothing more than that you all just grow from his passing. As tough and as impossible as it seems today, make him laugh, make him as proud as all of you are of him. Geez, flip. Now I'm so thirsty, I could actually do a brandy and river water right now. And a smiley emoji. And if anyone else feel like it, the spot was about 500 meters from the Red Bridge in Knysna. Look, it doesn't have to be brandy and river water, but I'd like to believe that those of you that can will take the time to reflect on the likable man and friend and go and enjoy a few toots at or around that very spot when you get a chance. Take care, love, regards, and our sincere condolences. Raymond and Melinda. Sure, that was a long read. Thanks, Coach. This is the first time that I've actually ever written down a speech. For some reason, my entire life, I've just always winged it and got away with it. But I just felt that I didn't want to be robbed of a few things that I wanted to say because my emotions get the better of me. So I actually wrote a speech. I'll try not to read it off like Jacob Zuma or some of the other politicians. We all have our thoughts and memories of Rick. And of course, I can talk about Rick for hours. But what is important, and to me, what really matters is who the Rick was to each one of you and to each one of you on Zoom and to everybody who is not here. What was Rick to the one of you? What is important is that personal relationship that you shared with Rick. And I know the fact that you are here and the fact that you've logged in is because you have shared a special relationship with him. When we lose somebody close to us, the first reaction that we have is we will miss you. We will miss the things that we were going to do together. We will miss the plans that we had for the future. We will miss the moments that we wanted to share and we're looking forward to with that person. What we also forget is that that person will miss us too. That person also had plans to spend with us. That person also had ideas and is going to miss out on that next ride or the next trip. So the loss is not just ours. The loss is also that person's. And I want us to remember when we do things in the future, yes, we will miss Rick, but he will also miss us. We need to hang on to the memories of the times that you've had together with him. Hang on to those memories. Remember those things, because those are the things that matters. There's no point in thinking about the things that could have been. Just stay with the things that you have. Rick often used to say to me, Pete, life is about choices. And I guess it was easier for him to say because I used to say to him, Rick, you're so lucky. You just get to go fly all the time. You just get to go do this. And it was because he was already retired and I wasn't. And I said, I just wish I was you. I wish I had that time that you had. And he just used to say, Pete, life is about choices. And I think Rick made many right choices. And the obvious one is the one that he fulfills, his lifelong dream, and that is to fly. We all know, and I've been repeatedly told by his family, especially of late, but in the past as well, that Rick, from a little boy, used to build little wooden airplanes, used to run around, swing them in circles, drive the family crazy with it. Later on, he went to fly radio-controlled aircraft. And the world is really actually a small place because we once worked out. He used to go to a place in the Carlton Centre called Redley's, there was a hobbyist shop and they used to build a lot of aircraft and things. And he bought himself a little aircraft called the Styx, or in Afrikaans it was known as the Stokkies. I don't know why, because it was a box aircraft, but it was called the Stokkies. And my dad used to build them for Red Lease on consignment, and then they would obviously sell it on. And we actually worked out that in our school days, he bought one of my dad's aeroplanes. Obviously, my dad was also very much into the radio-controlled airplane flying things and things like that. It was this common passion that I also had that brought Rick and myself close together from the first time that we met. And I'll never forget that day. He came down for a job interview at Pierre Premier and decided to spend the evening with Kat and myself. And our local dinner table was Peppino's, and we sat down, and of course I immediately put chilies on my pizza, and he also said, well, I want chilies too. Needless to say, he couldn't speak to us for the rest of the night because he just hiccuped up the whole time. So from the first time we met, I think it was that passion of the sky, the air, aviation, that brought the two of us much closer together. I'm forever grateful, and we've heard from the speeches also, the catalyst has been. And on his 50th birthday, we were all up in the Tankwa-Karoo. John was there, Alistair was there, and he said to me, he says, how would you fancy to go do hang gliding? And it was a thing that I started back in 1989 and never really fulfilled. I had a couple of high flights and then that was it. So, and we then went on to do a course. He organized everything. We went on to do a course. It was pretty tough with Lennox on the dunes. We carried on. We did our first high flights. I'll never forget those moments. And then we decided that we will go to the wilderness because at that time of the year, it was a really good place to get a lot of flights in and to just fast track that initial stages of our flying. For some reason, John and Aidan and Lennox went ahead. They got there earlier than what we did. And by the time we arrived, John and Rick had been in the sky at Sedgefield for quite a long time already, probably about an hour. And it seemed like another hour before they eventually landed at the bottom. And I'll never forget, when they landed, he had this really big smile on his face, and he walked up to me and he put his arm around me, and he said to me, "Swaar, no, ek 'n regte pilot." And I'll never forget that joy that he had. He had just spent, for the first time in his life, nearly 2 hours in the sky. I think it was probably about that long, John. You'll remember better than me. And he landed. And yes, at the age of 50, he finally fulfilled his lifelong dream of becoming a real pilot. Soaring the skies, not behind an engine or behind some mechanics to push him along, but in free flight. Probably the most purest form of flying that you could ever get. If we fast track 7 years from then, Rick went on to become an incredibly good pilot that I was envious of. And had flights that became the envy of so many others. And in so doing, also became the inspiration to other people to fulfill their dreams, because it took him 50 years to fulfill that dream. And he did it, and he did it well. Rick and I spent hours, countless hours together, not just flying and in the same space in the air, but also many hours in the car, to and from the flying sites. Mostly we would talk about flying, but when that was exhausted and we were tired of talking about flying, our discussions would inevitably turn to our children. What our children are doing, the way they are looking after this world, their attitude towards this world. And I said to you guys at the family gathering, your dad was incredibly proud of the three of you. What you guys are doing, honestly, carries absolutely his full approval. Keep at it. Your dad's proud of you. He's also one of the very few men that I know that was not afraid to actually open up to his emotions. He willingly spoke about his emotions and shared his emotions with people that he cared for and people that he felt he wanted to talk to his emotions about. That confidence to be able to do that then would also give other people the confidence to open up and help people to open up themselves, which they probably or most likely would not have done had Rick not been doing it. I know that I'm forever grateful to him talking to me about his emotions, which allowed me to talk about mine. In being true to himself, I just wrote here, I said he helped others on the same path, and I, for one, am grateful to Rick for this. Rick, I will miss you as my brother-in-law. As a friend, I will miss you in the sky. I'll miss you on our overland trips. Around the fire, your smile, the moments when we just chatted, when we had a cup of coffee, a beer, or even a few bottles of red wine. Your family and your friends will miss you, but I know you will miss us too. I thank you very much for all the great times we had together. We love you.
My friend Richard. Real friends are a necessity to a happy life, and Richard was my real friend. I would like to share a short story with you that will help me remember my friend. We met in primary school and only became good friends when I became a boarder at King Edward's. On my first day, I was somewhat lost, sitting on the cricket stands. Rick came over and welcomed me to Buxton House. He told me the good and the bad things of being in boarding school, and then said something to me that would change my life and make me the person I am today. Al, you should come rowing and try and make the team. Before this day, sport did not matter much in my life, but after this day, sport made me push myself to achieve and set goals, some possible and some impossible. Rick and I trained together and pushed each other to get the best place on the rowing team. We never rowed together in competition, but both achieved our goals and were both selected for first team crews. Rick went on to win the South African Rowing Championships and become our rowing captain, as well as receiving school colours. I learned from our friendship that if you have a calculated goal, worked hard, and kept the faith, you would achieve. Rick and I stayed friends, although we ended up in different parts of the world. Whenever we caught up, whether it was a visit or a call, we picked up where we left off, as if we had only been apart for a couple of weeks. Rick will be missed by his family and friends, and remembered by all he met. I will miss my friend and remember all the crazy good times we had. Thank you, Peter and Kathy, for keeping in touch and organising this memorial, and my sincere condolences to Georgina, Harrison, Aidan and Natalie, John and Di, Andy and Kathy. Thank you.
Can you hear me okay, Peter?
Yep. All good, Adam. Go ahead.
Okay, thanks. Good evening, everyone. I'd just like to start by offering my condolences to Georgina, Harrison, Aidan, Natalie, the family and the friends. My name's Adam. I'm a friend of Rick's. We got to know each other through our shared love of hang gliding. I am not copying Pete's speech. I made my own notes. They just happen to have a lot of similarities. Over the last few years, Rick and I got to know each other pretty well. We spent a fair amount of time together in the car, traveling to flying sites, to our annual flyaway in Porterville. And when you spend a lot of time alone in cars and in chalets, it gives you a lot of time to talk, and one can talk in quite detail. And I really value those times. I remember Rick as a very kind, positive, compassionate man. For me, he was a quiet optimist, and he was a sage and wise person. And I don't mean that kind of, professorial wisdom that says, "Look how wise I am, and look at all the stuff I know." I mean that kind of wisdom where he had a real gift of listening, and then helping you to arrive at your own solutions. He was interested in many things, and he had many interesting things to say about so many topics. And I loved our trips together, as they were about so much more than hang gliding. We were able to discuss anything and everything about the mysteries of life, and that's really rare to find someone that you can do that with. And if you went on a trip with Rick, it was impossible to have a bad day. Rick had that attitude of taking things as they came, making the best of the situation, and he had an unfailing ability to always see the bigger picture, which is really remarkable. He also had the world's most perfect toolbox, and it was a source of great annoyance to me in the back of the car, because it seemed to defy the laws of thermodynamics, and it was my job to mess that toolbox up if I could. I mean, even the cable ties had a cable tie on them just to keep them neat, On our trips, as Pete said, he spoke often of his family, and I know how deeply proud he was of each one of his children. But frankly, it's easy to be proud of your children. He was also very proud of his wife, and he told me a lot about that as well, showing me just how deeply connected he was to his family. In short, he was a complete pleasure to hang out with. I'll personally always be indebted to Rick for playing a vital role in helping me to process the grief at the loss of my father, and for helping me through dark and turbulent times in my life. He showed himself to be a true friend during those times, and our hang gliding trips were more often than not a form of road trip therapy. And I'll never forget that. If you're lucky in life, you meet one or two people that you can properly trust. Someone who has your back and who would do anything you need to help you, and you do the same for. For me, Rick was such a person. He was a rock. To lose someone like Rick in such a tragic, unexpected way is a devastating blow. He's irreplaceable. My heart goes out to the family, and I wish you strength in the difficult times ahead. And we are left to treasure the memories of a wonderful man. Thank you.
This is Kenny and Jill McLeod from Anchorage, Alaska. Can you hear us? Can we go ahead? So I met Richard in Durban, and we worked together. We very soon found out that we had very many common interests. The biggest one of all probably being family and flying. At the time, I was building a little two-seater airplane in my garage in Kloof, and Richard would come up with Harrison and Aiden, and the boys were just delighted to sit in this half-built airplane and tug the stick this way, that way, and they were just enthralled. So very, very special memories going back to Durban. Richard and I also took a month-long business trip to the United States, where we lived and worked in Houston and New Orleans, and oh my gosh, lots of very fun memories. And then some of the really good memories, Jill and I, whenever we come back to South Africa and we travel to Cape Town, we always got together with Richard and the family, and just very, very special memories. Richard was a solid guy, a sincere, solid guy, and we'll miss him. Thank you.
Yeah, Pete, can you hear me?
Yeah, okay, go ahead.
Hi, Pete. Got to keep this short. Rick, I love you like a brother. And in many ways, you were a brother to me, especially during those magical holidays on Leisure Island with the Lacey family. Rick mentored me in many ways. A few come to mind. Getting me up at sunrise to teach me to water ski in perfect glassy lagoon conditions. Getting me up on his windsurfer and teaching me how to windsurf. We shared a memorable drive. We think when we spoke about it last year in May, in 1986, we think, from Knysna to Cape Town. And when he reminded me about this by sending me a picture he had taken of me bungee jumping off the Mossel Bay Bridge, it was an amazing time. And we laughed so hard afterwards. And when he sent me the picture in May last year, we laughed even harder. I love you, Rick. I'm gonna miss you so much. Thanks.
Georgina asked me to say a few words today. Public speaking and speech writing skills are not my strongest suit. It's actually not bad. And it's really hard to honor the guy that Rick was. I met Rick in January 1986, almost 37 years ago to the day. He was walking up towards our first day at Cape Technicon, and I stopped and gave him a lift. From then on, we'd sit next to each other in lectures, watching the smoke from the Epping power station chimneys to know when we could go and windsurf. We studied together for the next few years, and it turned out that we both had bursaries from Eskom. So we ended up spending and working on power stations around Witbank. I spent a few weekends at Rick's house in Johannesburg, where I met John and Di. During our time as students, Anne and Georgina shared a house in Observatory, and it became apparent after a while that Rick wasn't really coming over at our Diggs house only to visit me. And as they say, the rest is history. Rick was my best man at my wedding, and I was his when he and Georgina got married in Knysna. Over the years, we'd spent many happy and fun times together. We spent time windsurfing, water skiing on the Knysna Lagoon, amongst another few adventures. Our families have holidayed together many times, and I have fond memories of surfing, camping, and holidays together in Stilbaai and Mozambique. Rick got me back into cycling when he asked me to join a team he was riding for the Double Century. We cycled together regularly, and he did a few multi-stage mountain bikes together around the country. It was at this time that Rick was invited to do the Cape Epic with about a week's notice. For those that don't know, most people spend an entire year training for this race. One of the most demanding mountain bikes in the world. He handled it with great aplomb. This is such a good example of the many of Rick's great traits. He was a real rock of a guy. You could call him at any time, day or night, and he'd be keen to get stuck into some adventure. You could rely on him 100% to come through for you and be there on time and ready. I often relate stories to my boys of his willingness to do stuff and what a pleasure it is to have a friend that you can completely rely on. He was a talented sportsman and an all-round competent guy. He will always be remembered for his friendliness. He always had a smile and was an easy guy to get on with. He was always willing to offer some help and had lots of time to chat. Rick was an honorable and steadfast man. He never had a bad word to say about anyone. He was positive and earnest in his interactions. He lived his life with integrity, with truth, and had a strong moral compass, always with a twinkle in his eye. He was an amazing friend, a special man who I'm going to miss.
Hi guys, no, Johnny and Clarence, and Rick and Georgina were probably just recently in a hike in the Babylon trip together. And so it's very fresh, the last trip. We were just saying to Pete earlier, because of that last hiking trip, which was late November, there's some very strong images, of course, of Rick enjoying himself in the outdoors, which is one of his loves. And the one that we were smiling about just now was the horse whispering episode. It was the first day of the Babylon hike, and we came across these horses in the middle of nowhere, and Rick somehow managed to make a connection with one horse, and he wandered up to it and he started caressing it and tickling it, and the horse was just going goo-goo. So Georgina says to him, Rick, give it a horse kiss or whatever. I don't know what it was called. So apparently what you do with horses when you give them a horse kiss, you blow a bit of air up their nostril or something. So Rick was there face to face with the horse like that, blowing this bit of air up, and suddenly Georgina from nowhere, I didn't detect anything. None of us detected anything.
I had no idea what was about to happen.
This Georgina realized that this horse's whole demeanor changed, and as it lunged to take a bite out of Rick's face, literally out of the side of his face, Georgina said to him, "Step back," or made some comment to cause him to just do that by him. So I guess that's just a little story about how well connected those two were, and what an amazing time it was that we had in all the trips that we did with Rick, cycling and the hiking stuff. Really going to miss them, man.
Yeah, and well, I reiterate everything Andy just said, and I think for Claire and I, we haven't actually known Rick and Georgina that long, and I think this hike was one of those times where you just see somebody for who they really are. You know, you're in the Babianskloof and you walk along this path and you're surrounded by these mountains, and as Andy just said, you have you just get these images in your mind of subsequently of this hike, and I think that what comes through to me is that I suppose I realize that what everybody has said today is exactly who Rick was. And that connection that you have.
My dad and I were incredibly close, and that I'm going to miss him very much, and that I love him, and I hope he knows that.
Yes.
Look, you thanked a lot of people, but nobody thanked you, and it would just be completely remiss not to talk about how you've been a tower of strength for everybody, the family, the friends, the community, the police, everybody. You've been a hero, Pete, and I just want to acknowledge you for that. for the support that you've given everybody when you yourself have been grieving with a big loss. You stood very tall. And I just want to really acknowledge you for that. And Aidan, I just want to say, you said you hope your dad knew that he loved you. Trust me, he knew. Okay, he really did. And yeah, I'd like to leave it there. Thank you.